Charles Burrows. Paul Gaines.
Here.
David Amspoker.
Here.
Henry Gutierrez.
Here.
James Lorimer. James Lorimer. I see he's here. John Stutzman.
Here.
Tim Gerlach.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Fantastic. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know if we're going to set things on. There we go.
Excellent.
Pledge
Allegiance
allegiance
To the flag
of
of the United States of America
And
and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just for your information, Commissioner Burrows did call me earlier. Unfortunately, he is in court as a judge, just to make that clear, and unable to join us for this evening's meetings.
Okay. Number one is approval of the minutes from last time. Has everyone reviewed, and are there any questions, comments, or changes necessary on the minutes from last time?
I've reviewed, I have no questions.
Okay.
I reviewed them and I have no questions either.
Hearing that, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Move in second. All in favor of approval of last month's minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa, did you get our move in second on the recorded?
Yes.
Thank you.
The ayes have it. Okay. Public comments, item 2. Do we have any public comments from last month or this month, Lisa, that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No
No.
public comments.
And Janie, Mr. Chairman, Janie had also told me she had received none up to this point.
Okay, so there are no noted comments then on that item.
Mr. Chair, I'd suggest, as opposed to taking items 3 and 4, which is reports of old business, that we actually move directly to new business out of order.
Yes. And new business is the election of the commission chair and the co-chair or vice chair. So, do I have a slate or docket or anyone that is running and for either one? Floor is open.
Yes, Chairman Brackett, I'd like to nominate Bill Burrows to be our chairman for this this year.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for the chairman besides Mr. Burrows? Hearing none, would we like to vote on the chairman first and vice chair second and do it that way, or do them together?
I think a separate vote would be fine.
Okay. So I have a nomination for Bill Burrows as chairman. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept Bill Burrows as chairman. See, no one is running against him.
I'll make a
move Go ahead.
I'll say that I'll make a motion to nominate Bill Burrows as chairman
I'll
for
second
the
that.
Airfield and Industrial Park Commission.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Now we're on to vice chair. Do I have a nomination for a vice chair?
I'm going to nominate Dave Amspoker.
I have a nomination of Dave Amspoker. Anyone else want to be nominated? I'll take a second on that then.
I will second that.
Second by John. All in favor of Dave Amspoker as vice chair of the Airfield Industrial Park Committee?
Aye.
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 Any nays? The ayes have it. And at this point, I believe I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Amspoker as the vice chair heading up the new committee.
Thank you, Scott.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
No, not
or
even.
Dave.
And actually, I rise but to recognize you for your service to the commission. I appreciate, number one, I appreciate you coming back and helping us this evening. Number two, I certainly appreciate you serving until your replacement was appointed. But more than that, it's been, kind of a pleasure. I got to work with you 2 years ago and then now, and I appreciate your guidance as well as your input on things associated with the airport. So I just want to take a minute to show my appreciation on behalf of the airport for your service to the commission.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, let's move on to reports. Lisa,
But
does she want to give us
Okay.
an industrial park staff report?
Is that okay, Joe?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. As previously mentioned, Bennett Bradley is not able to attend today, so I'll give the industrial park update on his behalf. Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to let you know that the team is working on a couple press releases for some new companies coming into the park. Those press releases will be finalized here within the next week and a half, and then they'll be submitted to the City of Kingman Public Information Officer to spread that throughout our media, local media, and social media as well. Staff has been working on bringing in additional fiber optics into the industrial park. I think everyone is aware of that. And we participated in a countywide broadband conference call to get further information, to get a little bit more specific organization on moving this forward. And the discussion will be continuing. You'll be updated as we have more information. This week, or actually last week, staff was able to conduct numerous cold calls to businesses in Southern California from a very large list of companies in Southern California in hopes that we can send them information about the Kingman Industrial Park. In fact, we were able to send them some brochures and speak to a couple of them in hopes that they'll consider Kingman Industrial Park for their businesses. Also, last week, there were discussions with some project teams and companies regarding one of the sites we hope to bring in the industrial park. So we showed them around a little bit last week, and all total, there are 8 projects that Bennett Bradley and I and others are working on to draw them to the Kingman area and the industrial park in hopes that they'll bring their businesses here. Are there any questions? Okay, that's what I have for now. I do not have a rail update at this time.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm going to, share my report just so you can potentially follow along. If I'm not seeing it. Actually, for today, I'll give the budget report next, but just going into the airport activity, we have been working with a company called Crucial Air, that does aircraft assembly, parts provision, storage. They've got two locations in the, one in the Midwest in Missouri or Illinois. I can't recall one, I believe in Ohio, towards the east, maybe it was further east than that. Anyway, they were looking for a temporary permit to do an aircraft disassembly that they were working with a customer on. My understanding is that they wanted to start in February. We had created a permit for them, and we haven't been able to complete that process. So I don't know if they're still interested or not, but that was one of the items we're working on. We also actually expect quite an increase in activity by Jet Yard. Jet Yard is one of our other aircraft storage and parts provisioning customers or partners that conducts activities here. We've had an agreement with them for about a year, I believe, or maybe it's back in the summer sometime. Anyway, they do expect to start actually increasing their activity significantly here, storing mostly pretty much all narrow body aircraft. They have another facility in Pinal Airport, just north of Tucson. And they're going to kind of convert that into their wide body operation and Kingman into their narrow body operation. So we're working with them. We've even had some initial discussion with them on potentially building on one of our vacant parcels here. We'll see how that all pans out. But they do expect to increase activity quite a bit coming up soon. Ameriflight, actually, also, we have an agreement with Store Aircraft here. They're up for renewal. There's no reason we wouldn't renew. They have about 7 or 8 aircraft stored here. And then Frontera, who we've had an agreement with for about a year and have some aircraft stored here, we're in the process of making a change to their permit just because they're looking at changing the name of the entity that does business here. So we're working on those 4 items. And as Lisa mentioned, Bennett's been working on, with some other customers that are interested in potentially starting some operations here at the airport.
Joe, we've got some new members, and it might be helpful if, when you get to the next section, you elaborate on what the various initials are for those new members.
I would agree.
To have a better understanding.
Let's see if there was anything in the last. I think those were all. SASO permit, just as we go through. Thank you for that, by the way, Mr. Vice Chair. The SASO permit is what's temporary. SASO is a specialized aviation service operator. And it's sort of a way that the airport categorizes folks that operate on the airport. You have fixed base operators, for example, the FBO, Arizona here. And then these specialized aviation service operators are various different kinds of operators, like storage facility operators or aircraft park provisioner operators. We also have, a paint operator here, which is more on the terms of a fixed base, but it's also a specialized aviation service. So that's what SASO stands for. As we move to the next section, we're going to talk about the process and the status of our selection for the vacant positions here. So our structure for our new commissioners is we have an airport manager position. I'm actually in an interim role there. And then we have 2 administrative support positions. That's an administrative assistant in Janie and administrative coordinator in Lisa. And then there is a supervisor position that we're actually trying to bring back up front. The supervisor manages the operations and maintenance functions on a day-to-day basis. So right now, Wes Pinkert is serving in that role. And then we have 2, we have 3 airport operations and maintenance specialist positions. That's AOMS. And those are the folks that are here doing the work with regards to airport operations and maintenance. So right now, we have two vacancies from two resignations that we had around the first of the year. And we've recently interviewed, well, let's see, I think we had something like 30, over 30 ultimate candidates. We actually had 9 selected for interviews. We interviewed 8 of those and we had one that did not show. I think we had one that declined, one that didn't show, and we interviewed 7 candidates. We've selected 2 finalists and we're in the process of completing the selection process with those folks. And right now we haven't fully completed an offer and acceptance stage as well, or a start date. But we expect that those individuals, should they accept our offers, will be starting in sometime, I would say, in mid-March. That would be my best guess. So we're moving along pretty well, finally, and we expect those new folks to be on board soon. The airport general manager selection process, that's the AGM, is actually the process for filling our airport general manager position. That makes sense. We had 16 or 18 applicants in total. We selected 6 to interview. We had 1 decline, and we interviewed 4 to this point. We had 1 candidate. We did those interviews last Wednesday. We had 1 candidate that, due to the bad weather at the airport that they work in back east, they were unable to make that interview. So we've rescheduled it, and it'll actually occur tomorrow. And that'll be our final interview of the final initial interviews for our 5 candidates. And then we will actually move forward with trying to get those folks scheduled for a second interview process. We're going to try to do 2 finalists. So my best guess on start, by the time we're able to finish our process tomorrow and get some second interviews scheduled probably sometime in March, I would anticipate that, we'd make a decision in March, and that we would probably have folks starting sometime in April or possibly May. It just kind of all depends on scheduling and, whether they have to move. Well, in fact, everybody has to move because no one is from Kingman that we interviewed. So it'll be sometime in April or May that we'll actually get somebody started. And I would expect to do a short transition period with them, and then leave them to the fine work of running this airport. So that's where.
Joe?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have any information on whether anyone from the commission will be able to meet with maybe the 2 finalists, at least like we did before when we had the last airport manager?
We do not plan on that having the same type of a thing that we had before. And what I would anticipate is that once a selection is made, that we'll probably look for an opportunity to have, of course, the new manager meet with the commission, but we will likely do that more in a one at a time thing, or small groups, than any kind of a large group.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, and excuse me. I got a little something in the throat. Staff and scheduling coverage. So currently, we just have the 1 position currently serving the airport from an operations and maintenance perspective. It is my anticipation that once our new airport operations and maintenance specialist positions are filled and the new individuals are on board, that after a couple of weeks of initial training, we would transition to our new schedule of having 1 maintenance specialist here Sunday through Thursday, and 1 here, the other would be Sunday through Thursday, and then it would be Tuesday through Saturday. So we'll have coverage 7 days a week. We're still only going to be able to cover first shift, but we're going to be able to cover 7 days per week. And so that'll start sometime, my anticipation would be sometime in probably late March, possibly early May. That'll start. And we have put forth a new supplemental position, a third airport operation maintenance specialist position that would then, if we receive that position after July 1st in the new budget year, we would select that position, and that position would work kind of a second, let's call it a second shift position, but it really would be something like 11 to 7 or 10:30 to 6:30 or something like that, that position. So we can cover at least 5 days a week. So it's one step at a time. Now we're covering 7 days, and, just day shift. Now we're covering 5 days with, someone here at least until 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. It is still our intention to attempt to try to get additional security presence when we're not here, so that there's someone at the airport all the time. But here again, those are budget decisions that have yet to be made. So that's our proposal for staff scheduling and coverage.
Manager Husband, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Gaines.
Yes, sir. If we have a question on one of these items, there's a long list here. Do you want us just to kind of butt in and ask at that time, or should we wait till you get all the way through your whole update and then we can present a question to you? What's better for you?
I'm flexible, so you can do it either way. These items are for information and discussion, and no action can be taken on them because of the way they were published in the agenda.
Correct.
But
Yes.
I'm happy to provide information.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So coverage. Quickly on some of these other items, and I'll try to go through these fairly quickly, but we got some great news. The oil site update. So I have, as I mentioned, we're budgeting to do a bigger oil site, waste disposal site. And we've also now got the capability of accepting used oil at here at the facility. Yeah, I know that you all know that because I know that most of you know that because I sent out an email. And for those new commissioners who didn't receive that email, I will see that you get that tomorrow sometime. And
That's great news. Great news. Yeah.
Yep.
Joe, you want to tell everybody where it's at?
In our shop, in our apparatus bays in the shop. And as I said in the email that I sent out to all of and this is for, just so everybody's clear, this is for non-commercial operators. Where, we sent out notice to all of our tenants, our hangar and shade and open tie-down tenants, that this service is available to them to collect used oil that they may have from performing maintenance on their aircraft. Ultimately, the bigger and more proper facility will be in the, let me see if I can bring up a picture, which is not the actual, but it is similar. Stand by, please. And, well, heck. Unfortunately, I don't have that photo available. So, get rid of that. Go back to where we were. So, but we are in the process of budgeting for that facility, which will be able to collect waste oil, solvents, tires, batteries, all at one location for our non-commercial tenants. And that'll be in the vicinity of the T hangars and shades. That's what's coming up. Chains and painting, as I said, we've made a little progress. We've ordered some chain. We've found some S-hooks that we think work well. We've replaced some S-hooks out there. It's something that we'll continue working on, but to be quite honest with you, due to our lack of staff lately, we really haven't done too much to it. Likewise, on the door seal replacement, we did have the our door vendor, door service vendor, maintenance vendor on site last Friday to replace a cable, and unfortunately they brought the wrong cable. So they'll be coming back soon, we hope. have to reschedule that service. But we will get to working on the door seal replacement. It's something here again that we just have not been able to get to due to other priorities. The covered tie-down lighting investigation, as some of you may remember, Vice Chair Amspoker brought us some solar lights that we're going to try. We've actually bought those, and we're gonna try them out in the covered tie-down to see how we work. We've also are looking at one other model that we may order and do some testing. We received notification back from the electrical contractor that said they were having some trouble sourcing, but they suggested some where we might be able to find some basically standalone LED units that are solar powered. And so we're getting ready to put up the ones that Vice Chair Amspoker had suggested. We've got a couple others we're going to try out too. So we're continuing working on that until we get it completed. Here again, soon we're going to be able to get more done when we get some more staff on board. The runway project is nearly complete. They still are awaiting a couple of electrical items. I mean, they were out here and did their work, a week, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, we had a closure. And nearly everything's completed, but they are just having a hard time getting the final electrical parts. They've got just a few things that they need to repair out there. I'm gonna be leaning on them pretty hard because I want to get this project done and begin our closeout process with the FAA on the grant. But we're for all intents and purposes, we're done. I mean, what work is left out there is minuscule by comparison. So that takes us to Taxiway B. And we do want to get started with Taxiway B this year. I've actually reviewed, I believe they're 60% design for Taxiway Bravo. We've also sent them to the FAA and ADOT for their review. And so we're working on finalizing those plans and hoping to get that project kicked off as quickly as possible. The fence project is also working. We've had our engineer create a very basic plan set, which shows, the fencing details, location, layout, that kind of stuff. And we're hopeful that within the next, I'd say 4 or 5 weeks, we'll be able to try to find a contractor that can give us some pricing on that. It's our intention to use a cooperative agreement that we participate under with other state agencies. And so we're investigating those right now. So that's coming up, fence project. Terminal painting and landscape, the terminal painting is completed. The terminal painting is underway. It's not completed, but we are working on that, and the outside of the terminal is looking good. We've got another follow-up meeting on the landscape project and the drainage repair project on the backside of the terminal. That'd be the air side of the terminal, because we're trying to cut that down. We received an original estimate of something on the order of $150,000 or $160,000. We're trying to find ways we can cut some of that down while still ensuring that we do the proper work on the project as is necessary. We've got a follow-up meeting, I believe it's on Wednesday, with the city engineer and public works to continue working on that rear landscaping project. And we realize it's an eyesore as it is, with the dead grass, and we may have to do something in the interim to try to make it a little bit more attractive. But we are continuing to work on that project. The landscape services on Mojave Airport Drive they actually started the 1st of January. They completed all their initial work, which was to apply, get everything trimmed up and in proper condition and apply pesticide, both post and pre-emergent, to the areas to kind of keep it from weeding up. So all of that that initial startup process has been completed, and we're down to our monthly service. I think they're doing a good job taking care of it. And then regarding our FAA and ADOT grant coordination, so everything is generally current on all of our grants. We actually, since our last meeting, have closed out the master plan grant. There's still a little bit work to be completed, but we had spent all the grant money. And really what's left is some printing and things like that of the final documents. So the master plan and the ALP are in the final stages of approval by the FAA. And I say the master plan is approved. The ALP is in the final stages of approval with the FAA. They actually signed that document, as do we. But the grant itself has been closed out. We've closed the grant out. We received our closeout letter from the FAA. Likewise, our CARES Act grant, this is the money that we're going to be using We actually were awarded the CARES Act grant of $69,000 that we used to offset our expenses within our budget, our operating expenses, wages and things like that. And so now that found money within the budget will be transferred into a line item that we're able to use to complete the fence work. And as I said, that's moving along. But we did receive all of the grant money that enables us to do that. That happened just last week. We have received the executed Taxiway Bravo Phase 2 grant back from ADOT after, a month and a half or so. But we've got it. So once we've got the design complete, we're able to start bidding that and start construction of that Taxiway Bravo Phase 1, which will be from basically where it joins the Taxiway Delta to the box hangers that are out there, that first phase, the concrete section. So that's moving along pretty well. And let me take a step back and to our new commissioners, Commissioner Gutierrez, as well as Commissioner Lorimer, and to some degree Commissioner Gaines. Maybe we'll take an opportunity and schedule a tour of the airport. I realize you guys have got a little bit of learning curve to do just on locations and things like that. So I'd be happy to show you around sometime in the next couple of weeks. We'll try to schedule that. So back to the report. All of the grants, as I mentioned, are up to date, and we've received a number of reimbursements at this time. So we're doing quite well on that. With equipment acquisitions, we are in the process of acquiring the FODBOS that I've talked to you about. It's about $6,000 and change dollar. Really a great device. The FODBOS, as I've explained to you before, and you're welcome to search it on the internet, it actually is a device that you drag behind a motorized piece of equipment. It can be a tractor, it can be a golf cart, it can be a pickup truck or a car. And it really is effective at picking up FOD on the airfield. In many cases, it works as well as or better than a sweeping device or a vacuum device that we currently have. All the equipment has their best advantages and some of their disadvantages, but this FODBOS, I think, will really help us do a better job on keeping FOD picked up here at the airport. That, and coupled with the fact that we're going to get back to full staff shortly. So,
Joe?
Yes.
Joe, can you define fog?
Yep.
for
Foreign
people?
object debris. Foreign object debris. It is stuff, things that get on the movement areas, the surfaces, the paved surfaces of the airport, rocks, sticks, sand, etc. FOD is foreign object debris, and it actually causes has the potential to cause damage to aircraft. So,
Thank you.
oh, but of course. And the backhoe, we pretty much, as I've mentioned to you, we discovered, as I reported last month, that the one that we were working towards looks like it's going to have some pretty significant problems, or at least it's going to be a significant cost to find out exactly what the problem is. And so we've really abandoned that idea. It didn't cost us anything. And we've been able to redirect the money that we had in the budget into other things that were a higher priority. So I'm going to take that off of there because we're no longer investigating buying a backhoe, and we have public works equipment that we can borrow should we need it. So the final thing I will report on is the Dross site update. And I will share with you that I received an email very recently that the Department of Justice, the U.S. government, has approved the waste disposal plan. And that's the plan is where all of the stuff is going to go, which is going to be to the appropriate landfill in Nevada. Yes, Nevada. And we're now working on the mitigation plan. So the actual remediation plan. Now they've accepted that, we can move on to the actual plan that will conduct the work of excavating out the material, replacing it with proper subgrade and subgrade material, and then repaving the area. It's expected that that'll take the engineer about 30 to 60 days to develop that plan, and then it goes back to the Department of Justice and the U.S. government for approval. And that could take anywhere from, 2 months to infinity. But we are starting to see, you know, we're to that point where the waste disposal plan actually was approved in a fairly short period of time compared to, you know, the big picture of this project, which we've been working on for a number of years. So, you know, you know, we create that plan, we submit it to them, we address any comments, we get final approval, and then there's no reason we can't start doing the work once it's finally approved. So I say all of this to say that even it's remarkable that this 4 months or so that I've been back, I've seen sort of more movement on the draw site than there's been in, you know, many years all put together. So we don't want to get too carried away, but we are cautiously optimistic that, you know, in the not too distant future, we could see that site essentially repaired back to a usable condition. I know that'll make everybody happy, especially Commissioner Gaines, who's all the way down at the far end of it, for crying out loud.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we're moving forward on that. We're looking forward to potentially getting that done. So, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, that is my report at this time with regards to the airport activities.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe regarding the airport activities?
Well,
None mentioned. Let's move on. There is no old business.
Well, and I do need to give the budget report, which is
Okay.
Usually under new business, I think, but the copy that I've got is not so good. Here, let me just double check and make sure I'm not making a horrible mistake. Horrible mistakes, we hate those. Huh. So the
Budget report would be fine.
the budget report doesn't appear to be on here, so we
No,
must
it
not have
doesn't.
to make one. Just kidding. So back to where we were. Here is the budget report. Let's see.
Joe, are you certain you can speak about it if it's not on the agenda?
I don't think we
yeah.
can.
Yeah, because it's in the you know, it's actually as part of my activity report. And it's not for action. So therefore it doesn't necessarily need to be in the agenda.
Okay.
I'm trying to resume share here. That's what I wanted to do. Which is not the one that I wanted to share. Forgive me, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to go back to share screen, and then I'm going to go to technology. We love it. And then we go over here to
Joe, can you hear me?
loud and clear.
We did not post any old business.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I saw that in the agenda, but this isn't old business.
Correct. That would just fall under your reports, correct?
Yeah. So, just to quickly go through the dollars and cents, we are 58% up through the fiscal year. That's through the end of January. We have revenues and expenses, revenues at $902,347 and expenses at $836,015. So as you can see, we're 58% through the fiscal year, and we spent 59% of our budget. When you take out the encumbrances and just go to the actual expenditures of $510,000, we're at 36% of our budget. So just for information purposes, there are things that we have encumbered that we have not spent yet, but we expect to spend, and that's where those encumbrances come in. But the bottom line is either way you look at it, we're doing well on budget performance of expenses versus revenues. I mean, as a rule, the airport for you new commissioners, all municipal agencies typically will have a balanced budget that will be, we're an enterprise fund, we're not part of the general fund, we take no tax dollars out of the City of Kingman general fund. We're funded through airport revenues that we make here on the field. And also, of course, we get supported by various grants from the FAA and ADOT and other locations. Those typically come from user fees that are imposed on folks within the FAA and ADOT circles. So we're not dependent on any tax dollars. But when we do our budget, we look at what we are gonna bring in and say, here's our revenues, and then we have a balanced budget. So our revenues and expenses generally match. Now, not in all cases, we don't always spend our entire budget that's been approved. And in that case, the money remains in the airport fund. So the city of Kingman has an airport fund. It's a restricted fund. All the monies that we earn on the airport and all the grant monies and all of the monies that come to the airport actually go into this fund. And that money cannot be spent for other things than the general fund. So just as we do not take anything from the general fund, we don't provide anything to the general fund for the city either. So that's just a little trying to help some of our newer commissioners understand what our fiscal policies are here at the airport. Back to the budget report. As I said, you know, either way you look at it, we're spending at or less than our revenues. Here's a breakdown of our airport versus industrial park. So of that $902,347, the airport generated $760,163 of that, and the industrial park generated $142,184. So that's just to show the difference. And the things that come to us from the industrial park are things like leases for facilities that we actually own within the industrial park, as well as the Patriot rail revenues, other fees that are, there's not many, but there's occasionally some other fees that are assessed within the industrial park. We do that simply to keep an accurate depiction of where our revenues are coming from and also where our monies are going. So that was the revenue report. The expense report for airport versus industrial park is $451,265.70. That's the money that the airport has spent. And then on the industrial park side, $58,984. This is this fiscal year. So since July 1st of this year through the end of January. And this item is reported without encumbrances. So this is real money. You know, we could actually put the encumbrances in there, but it doesn't seem to make sense for the purpose of trying to analyze and define the difference in costs between airport and industrial park. Because we'll always report the actual money spent, and so that'll reflect on the encumbrances as those encumbrances are spent throughout the fiscal year. So, yes.
Could you give us some examples of the $58,984.30 that was spent on the industrial park? Would that be like signs and such, or what?
Would be exactly like signs. And also, we did some landscape project out there earlier. Half of the landscaping that we're going to be doing currently is going to be charged half and half between airport and industrial park. Stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. Fuel flow. This is actually through the end of January, 105,000 gallons, 105,214.2 gallons through the end of January. So then I just wanted to give a quick update on where we are on our budget, our operating budget development, as well as our CIP budget development. So we've submitted the items, and I provided those to the commissioners, the list of things that we submitted into our capital program. Most of those have been approved to move forward to the next step. They're not fully approved, but things like the additional, the burn pit cleanup on the parcel out in the industrial park, the cover tie downs that have been submitted. Trying to think of the other items right off the top of my head. The waste oil site has been submitted, all that. I think that might have been under the capital plan. Anyway, those items that I shared with you last week, with the exception of the levee repair, because we're going to wait for our drainage study to be completed before we program that. So it's still potentially down the road, but it's not going to be in next year's capital budget. All of those items have been submitted. We've prioritized them, and a final decision will be made on what moves forward in the capital plan soon. I feel good about our covered tie downs. In order to get it approved, we actually had to come down a little bit on the funding from 250 to 200,000. We think that's still doable. I can't imagine why it can't be, but it looks like we're probably going to move forward. The final CIP budget won't be approved for another couple of weeks. So when it is finally done, I'll bring that back to the commission for your information. And then on operating budget developments, we're in the process right now of working on the supplemental requests for operating budget for the next year. And, we've got some additional funding that we're going to request, such as some dedicated money for airfield pavement maintenance, some dedicated money for electrical maintenance. We're looking at the possibility, as I mentioned, of security services on site full time. That's coming up soon. That we're proposing that, although that's going to be tough because it's pretty expensive. And we may need to go to some of our airport partners and ask if they're willing to participate in that process. What I mean is financially participate in that process in order to get it done. But more on that will be coming soon. But we're in the process of putting together that final budget, those final budget requests, which includes the additional position that we want to try to get for next fiscal year. So that's our operating budget summary. Like I said, we're working on that right now. Those final decisions are still quite a ways in the future. I think the final city decisions will be made sometime in mid to late March on what moves forward. And then, of course, the final budget will be going to the council after that point, sometime in, I would assume, April or May. So that's that. There's one other thing I forgot to mention in my regular report. We are probably the 1st of April planning to change the gate codes for all of the gates here at the airport. I've got a phone call in to finance so we can put a notice in everybody's statement that we send all of our hangar tenants and ship tenants and things like that. We send out, of course, monthly statements. And so we're going to put it in there. We'll also make that notification through my regular notification process that I do via email. We're going to do everything we can to get the word out in the street. Even so, there will be challenges, I am certain. People will have not gotten the message and will not be able to get into the airport. So it's going to be incumbent to a degree on all of us to assist in that process. However, we also have to remember that safety and security are the most important. So I'm not saying you shouldn't help somebody get in if you know them very clearly, know that they're an airport tenant and that they're safe to operate on the field. But the whole purpose of changing the code is so people who have no business on the airfield are unable to get onto the airfield. And so, like I said, there'll be some growing pains involved in this, but I did want to let you know that that is potentially out there and coming soon, as we've discussed at previous meetings. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, that's my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Joe, will you have those numbers for the various gates at our next commission meeting? Or will that come the 1st of April?
When you say numbers, what is it you mean?
Well,
Chairman.
I think we all know the current codes.
Right.
Which will be changing.
Right.
Will the new numbers, the new codes, be available at our next commission meeting?
Well, when you say available, I mean, I'm not going to put them out in an open forum,
right?
By any means. I don't, and so I guess, Mr. Chairman, the short answer to your question is, I'm not sure how I'm going to communicate that information to the people that need to have those. So we need to make sure that we have an ability to get those codes out to our airport tenants, our airport business partners that need them. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that yet.
Okay, well, like you said, sending it out in the bill is probably one of the best ways.
Yeah, I'm not going to send out the code in the bill.
You're not?
Nope. We're going to send out the notice that the codes will be changed.
I see.
So as I said, I realize that it's not going to be too terribly long until whatever new code that we put out there is compromised, because people are going to give it to the wrong people. We know that's going to happen. I know that's going to happen. Maybe I shouldn't speak for anyone but me. And so the more we can do to reduce that and make it more difficult, the better off we are in the long run. But I realize, you know, we do not in any way intend to keep anybody from the airport that needs to be here. You know, it needs to have access to the airfield. But we just need to do it in such a way that we minimize the opportunity for others to be able to access the airfield.
Certainly, and I was just thinking of Commissioner Gaines probably gets deliveries from UPS. And so the UPS driver would need to know the code as well.
Yeah,
And I'm sure there's other,
or not.
or not.
Yeah, I mean, there are any number of ways people, you know, so but you're absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman.
Well, hopefully we'll have that figured out. Thank you.
Right, I mean, it could be that when a delivery comes, a notification is made to whoever's getting the delivery and they go meet them and let them in. You know, I mean, there's, the more we can keep the code from the world, the longer it will remain an effective, you know, tool.
Security measure, yes.
Yeah.
Manager Husband, I have a comment on that real quick. So some days we receive probably, I don't know, from different couriers at different times of day, you know, 4 or more deliveries. And sometimes someone, I guess, might not be available to let them in or something. So we're gonna have to work on that for sure, because I can see a really large inconvenience. At the same time, I appreciate the security aspect. And you're right, everybody probably in the county knows the security codes here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that has to be at least recognized and how to handle it. I can certainly give my personal phone number to the UPS people, and when the gate codes change and they can't get in, they can call me, and I can either let them know or run out there, and I can see how that goes. But it's possible that all of us are busy out here working on a project and we can't stop, and then they won't be able to make like important deliveries that we're waiting on or something. So I don't know how that would work yet.
And I'm not presuming, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Gaines, I'm not presuming that it's going to be one way, the other way, or a different way. And I realize the needs of our business partners at the airport. I get that. You know, and I'm not even proposing necessarily that we don't let the UPS driver in.
Right.
But what I'm saying is we really need to be thoughtful about how we move forward. And you know, the problem is that we give it to UPS, who usually has the same driver, but doesn't always. So now you got multiple UPS drivers that has it. And anyway, I'm not gonna, the dead horse has been beaten severely to this point, I believe, by me. So, I mean, we need to figure it out. I'm just saying we need to be smart about how we figure it out so we can maximize the length of time that this change renders effectiveness before everybody in the county has a code again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Understood.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission?
Okay. I believe we can move on to new business, and we already had the election, so we can go to B, proposed commission responsibilities and structure. Commissioners will discuss the duties, responsibilities, and structure of the commission and committees. This item is for discussion and possible action.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, so as we're all well aware, this is essentially a new commission with a different ordinance and some different members, and certainly much of our work continues as it has with the Airport Advisory Commission. But what I wanted to do was clearly define the commission responsibilities and structure and propose, based on my experience at City of Phoenix with the Phoenix Aviation Advisory Board, or the City of Glendale with the Glendale Aviation Advisory Commission, shares some of those things that they were typically responsible for, you know, at their core. And so I put together this draft. I sent it out last week with the rest of the materials and wanted to just use this as a discussion starting point for our, you know, clearly defining what our commission duties and responsibilities and the structure will be. And I can either go through these things now or later at your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Why don't you briefly go over it at this point, as far as I'm concerned? There's a number of things on here that I think we should at least look at.
Okay. So just let's start with, let me go to the bottom and start there and come back up. So these are the items that I would suggest that I report on, and this is generally the same things that we are doing now. The division budget performance, which we just covered, the airport industrial park operational activities that Lisa and I just went over, the projects and grants that we do, and then the business development. We're always talking about sort of who we're talking with and what's coming up, as well as the thing I added here that we would sort of regularly report on is the land obligation release progress. This is the 1,800 acres that we're in the process of conducting an environmental assessment for a land obligation release from the FAA. So those are the items that I, you know, like I said, not much change there. The next section is there is the proposal of 3 sort of standing committees, and these committees would do some of the development work that then would be proposed up through the regular commission structure. So the first would be one on policies and regulations, and that'd be things like our airport rules and regulations, our minimum operating standards, leasing policies, things like that, that we are in need of making changes to. And so we think it's important that the commission be involved in that process, that then by representation, 2 members of the advisory committee, as well as 2 members of, you know, somebody from the airport, somebody from the industrial park, somebody from law, and somebody from finance, working together to create, modify, and enhance or edit those documents.
So that committee would consist of 6 people?
Generally 2, 4, 6, yes. Generally speaking. Realizing not everybody makes it every time, but you know, that's the positions. Okay. The next would be more, so that's more on the policy and regulation side. The next would be with regards to development and planning. So looking at the master plan and what's been proposed and approved for the future, developing some of the development priorities and policies that we put forth, helping us create those annual and long range plans, and then sending those approvals and recommendations up to the full commission that then potentially send them up to the city council. And then finally, the events and promotion committee. Oh, and the makeup of that would be the same, similar as before, but instead of having finance and law, you'd have public works and economic development involved in that committee. So still 6 people involved. The events and promotion committee, just as I said, or as stated here, guidance and assistance on airport industrial park events, marketing, website, promotion, those kinds of things. And also actively engage in the development and planning of events that we have, similar to the Air Fest, excuse me. So those are the 3 committees that I essentially proposed, and then those feed up to this. So when you look at the basic duties and responsibilities, all of those documents and instruments and correspondence and things that are going to go to council for approval should come through the commission in large part. There are going to be times when that doesn't always work out depending on the meeting schedule. If we've got a grant, for example, that needs to be turned around relatively quickly, then we may have to bypass commission approval and get it into council as quickly as possible. Those are rare, but they do happen. But generally speaking, things that are headed to council should come through the commission first. And then these other 2 areas are just the sort of the synthesis of the committee work. So that, advisory approval of policies, that advisory approval of development plans. Those are the things that come up from the, commissions or the committees, that then are, approved in the formal setting in the commission. Not saying that there's not any opportunity to, make changes or, but I mean, this is sort of the way things had, the way that I've been used to doing business with our commissions and boards at other airports. So I thought I would suggest it here and then see what the thoughts were. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is my proposed starting point for us to look at the responsibility and structure of the committee, of the commission.
Does anybody have any comments?
Wow.
Well, I just would say that we probably want to continue this discussion in the next meeting and give our chair a chance to get caught up with us on this information.
Great.
Is there a motion to table this until the next meeting?
I make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
It's been moved and seconded that we table this until the next meeting. Is there any further discussion on this before we vote?
Is it because of the next meeting so the new chair can review it and comment?
That's my intention, yes.
Because I guess it could be, I mean, if you want to really modify the motion to where he has a chance to review and publicly comment if that's what the goal is, because we all know he's very, very busy in his role down there as a judge. So I don't know how that's going to work. But sure, we can table then retable it if we need to, I guess.
Yeah, I believe that'd be possible. Any further discussion? Then there's a motion on the floor. All in favor of tabling this item until the next meeting, giving Chairman Burrows a chance to review. In favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? I believe it's passed unanimously. Next on the agenda is rates and fees. We've got several new members on the commission, and I would think until they have a chance to review these, it would be appropriate to table that for another month as well. Is there a motion to that effect, or does any discussion on the rates and fees seem reasonable at this time?
I just curious, Dave, who will disseminate that information out to the new members?
That's a good question. I would be glad to meet with them and discuss what has been done. I know John Stutzman and I were both on the rates commission. And so I think between the two of us, we can meet with other members and not violate the open meeting law. John, do you agree? Did he get a call?
I don't know.
He might have gotten a call.
Yes, no, I agree.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we can do it that way. And that way we'd bring everybody up to speed on the rates that were proposed. So is there a motion to table this?
I make a motion to table this till next meeting.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
in favor of the motion to table rates and fees until the next meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? The motion carries. Next is item D. We've got upcoming commission training. I believe we're going to be notified by the city clerk as to when that will take place. Does anybody have information? Joe, do you have any information on when that might happen?
At the next meeting. And so I have tentatively scheduled. So this is training, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, that's done by the city clerk, in some cases, city attorney, to discuss and give training on the public open meeting law, as well as parliamentary procedure. I don't know if they do this every year annually, but the city clerk contacted us saying that it's time and they were wanting to do it. We asked them to wait until the new commission was seated. And then what we have proposed to her is that we actually do this at our next meeting. What I explained to her was we didn't know exactly when our next meeting would be until we get to the next agenda item. But I would notify her, and I told her that tentatively it would remain on the third Mondays.
Okay.
So this is really just information. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman. This is really just information to let you know the training's out there, the training's coming, and then we go from there.
Okay, well, let's move on then to E, and then when we make a decision, you can communicate that to the city clerk.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, under the new ordinance, the ordinance stipulates that the commission shall meet at least quarterly, or at other times as called by the chair. I don't recall exactly what it says, but that's pretty close to what's written in the ordinance. And so I wanted to, as we are embarking on this inaugural meeting of our newly expanded commission, that we would determine at your pleasure, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, what the meeting date, time, and frequency will be.
Well, we've been meeting monthly, and all of our meetings are running a minimum of an hour and a half and usually much longer. So I think the need still remains to be meeting monthly, but that's something we can discuss. If there's any people that have comment here, any commission members that have comment, please speak up. Do you think we should go to less frequent schedule, or should we keep it monthly, or?
I say for now, we stay monthly.
That's
I'm okay.
my feeling. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm okay with monthly also.
Paul, do you have an opinion on whether we should go monthly or?
Not a strong opinion at this time, only because this is my first meeting in attendance and being involved, but they seem to be reasonable at this time, and we'll see how it goes, I guess.
I agree also. It's monthly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mr. Larimar, do you have any interest in a different time schedule?
No, I think by the size of the agenda, it needs to be monthly.
Okay, so I think it seems to be unanimous of the 6 commissioners that are here today. And now we should talk probably about times and date. If we're going to try to meet with, in a hybrid committee meeting, I don't believe there's any other council meetings or commission meetings on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. That's the opposite Tuesday that city council meets. does anybody know differently?
When you say hybrid, you're talking about actually an in-person, a combination of in-person and Zoom?
Correct.
So don't we have to have approval from the council before that happens, shall we say?
Well, I think, our liaison, Vice Mayor Watkins, did you, did I
Well,
understand you correctly? When we asked you earlier today?
Right, we could, according to Manager Foggin in the text that I sent to him, he said we could meet hybrid, but we need to be down at the council chambers. And of course, following social distancing guidelines and, wearing masks until you're sat down, on the dais, for example. There's room typically for 3 commission members up there on the dais. And then, I don't know, Joe, I guess we could get 4, don't you think, Joe?
Councilmember Watkins, I wouldn't want to speculate.
Oh, yeah,
Because I'm not intimately familiar enough to
Right.
really say.
But there is room. I don't think we're gonna have large crowds, wanting to show up at this meeting. So I think the room is big enough to have everybody there.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm reasonably certain some of our members, for instance, Commissioner Gerlach works in Las Vegas during the day, and he might want to prefer to appear on Zoom. I don't know, I'm not trying to speak for you, Tim, but, and today, John Stutzman is working as a fireman as well. And so we've got some people that would probably benefit from being able to Zoom, while others would prefer to meet in person.
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Yes,
the one I did want to the Tuesday schedule for me doesn't work, but I'm the liaison. So, second and fourth Tuesdays, if things start settling down more where we can go back to doing it, I volunteer in one of our church buildings up in Las Vegas on second and fourth Tuesdays. So, but once again, I'm only one person and I'm just the liaison. So,
so the second Tuesday is out for you?
Second and fourth Tuesdays, both.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the commissioners, Vice Mayor, we just recently went through a fairly involved analysis and determined that the third Monday was no conflict and worked well for everybody. And so I'm just curious as to why we're considering moving to a different, if we're going to continue to meet monthly, why we're considering I'm curious.
Well, one of the reasons, Joe, is that we've had to move to the third Monday because the last 2 months on the second Monday when we were initially meeting were both holidays.
Yeah.
And Monday tends to be one of the days that gets a 3-day weekend for a lot of people.
Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
But we could, I don't know, is apparently 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon is on the third Monday of the month is okay. And we could still meet on that day. I brought up the Tuesday simply because I knew that nothing else was going on. Unbeknownst to me, our liaison is not available that day. So we could continue to meet on Monday at 3 o'clock if there's nothing conflicting at the council chambers.
I think we'll just have to make adjustments as needed, Vice Chair, if we can, if we need to, like if we know there's a holiday coming up and, if it's really a pressing thing and we should meet, then we can adjust, hopefully plan ahead a little bit maybe and make an adjustment if we need to meet, that kind of thing. I have been watching a lot of these online and I'm here now with this one and And, you know, any day for me, I can adjust in and out of, and I think everybody else has been pretty much able to attend, except right now I know that Mr. Burrows is really overloaded with judging duties. And until that clears up regardless, I think it's going to be a little bit tight for him. So just an outside observation, and as a new member, I think this day and time is acceptable.
Okay, can we have a motion from someone for that?
Make a motion that we keep, for now, keep this date and time for our next meeting.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to keep the third Monday, 3 o'clock, as our meetings date
For
of each
foreseeable
month.
future. Yeah,
Is that correct, Tim?
yeah, for the foreseeable future, if it needs to be changed, we'll deal with it at that time.
For the foreseeable future, is there a second to this motion?
I will second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we keep the third Monday of the month, 3 o'clock, for the immediate future. And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I
All opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, it carries. So our next meeting, should be on March 22nd, I believe. Yes. No, March 15th is the third Monday. Does that work for everybody?
Yes, worked for me.
Yep.
It works for me.
Yes.
Okay. Now we can go back to D, and Joe, you can communicate that to the city clerk. And make sure that it can be done hybridly at that point.
Well,
You are popular today.
yes, I'm trying to figure out how to make it shut up. It rings all the time. Anyway, I will, like I said, I've already communicated to the city clerk that we are expecting that would be the meeting. So we're good to go there. As far as whether it's hybrid or not, and you know, I appreciate the vice mayor actually doing the work of communicating with the city manager. I will
Fine.
make sure that I get my instructions. I'm trying to be delicate, so I'll just stop and not be delicate.
Joe,
And
it's
instead
all right.
just say, I won't guarantee that it'll be hybrid, and I'm quite sure that the people from the city will be participating via Zoom. You know.
Well, I've been at the last two city council meetings, and that seemed to work somewhat better. I think everybody looks forward when we can all get together in person again in the future. Item number 6, announcements by commission members. We'll just go through. Commissioner Gerlach, do you have anything you'd like to comment on?
I have no announcements this meeting.
Commissioner Stutzman, do you?
That would be no.
Commissioner Larimar, do you have anything you want to comment on?
Not today.
Commissioner Gaines, do you have anything to discuss?
Negative.
Commissioner Gutierrez, do you have anything to discuss? No, sir. I don't either, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
For me to clarify before we go, Mr. Chairman, members of the
Sure.
commission. So we'll bring back proposed commission responsibilities and structures, rates and fees, and upcoming commission training. Well, upcoming commission training will be one of the items, and the other two will be continued to old business. And that's what we'll have on the agenda for, next meeting. I just wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate the clarification, and I'm sure if Commissioner Burrows or I have something else that we'd like to throw on there, we will, and we'll let you know in plenty of time in advance.
Excellent.
Okay. Now I guess we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
We moved and seconded. Who seconded that motion?
I did.
Commissioner Gerlach, thank you. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Everybody have a wonderful week.